Guys, it's been... Guys, it's been...
Walk the earth. It is perhaps the Neanderthals that people are most fascinated by. Their likeness and close relationship to us has even led some to dub them as our sister species, and even their DNA can still be found within most of us to this day. While dates aren't clear, it is thought that this group of archaic humans inhabited parts of Eurasia between 400,000 and 40,000 years ago. Most of this time falls under the Chibanian stage of the Pleistocene, a time when Eurasia was generally even colder than it is today and filled with an abundance of megafauna that made life no walk in the park. Therefore, to survive and thrive in harsh conditions, Neanderthals evolved some of the most insane biology seen in any Homo species. And if alive today, some would most likely even consider them to be superhuman in a few senses. From afar, their anatomical differences to us would not be so obvious, with the likeliest contrasting feature being their height, as recovered specimens show that on average, Neanderthals were quite a bit smaller than modern humans, typically being 14 centimeters or 5.5 inches shorter than post-World War II populations. The tallest known Neanderthal specimen, dubbed Amud 1, is believed to have been about 1.78 meters or 5 foot 10 inches tall, which really doesn't seem that tall, all things considered. However, when comparing Neanderthals to European populations of 20,000 years ago, we find that Neanderthals were actually equally as tall and if not slightly taller, so that's really all to say that we don't know how tall they could have been. What's fascinating though, is that despite being shorter than modern humans, Neanderthals were quite a bit heavier, with the average male having weighed up to 83 kilograms or 183 pounds, while the females usually hovered around 66 kilograms or 146 pounds, making them 20% heavier than the average Homo sapien. The reason behind this paradoxical sounding information is that Neanderthals had crazy robust skeletons that were much more compacted than our own, with virtually every single bone being thicker and heavier, with them sometimes even being twice the density. Their shoulders, femurs, chest, triceps, arms, and kneecaps were especially bulky, which are all signs that they were extremely powerful and muscular in life. And it is widely agreed upon that they were much stronger than us, a possible adaptation to their close-quarter hunting tactics that involved them using giant spears to take down medium and large-sized prey, which included various rhinos, horses, elephants, and of course, woolly mammoths, which were equivalent in size to African bush elephants, and sported thick coats of fur that made it that much harder to kill them. And speaking of African bush elephants, it's no secret that they're endangered just like their woolly cousins were before them when they were still around, as within just 3 generations, 50% of the global population of African bush elephants have died off. And while I love making videos about extinct animals, I would rather not have any more animals to be added to the list of potential videos, which is why I'm really excited to be partnering with Planet Wild. Planet Wild is basically crowdfunding programs to expand or ease unleash out of so you can 100% how much funding was used because I think it's an app highly QR code for whatever about the project I described earlier, check out the video link in the description. This widespread and presumably lifelong use of these spears is also what some researchers partially believe led to the distinct Popeye-like arms seen in many Neanderthal specimens that would have allowed them to wield weapons with ferocious intensity. The well-defined nature of their arms and overall muscular build was possibly also a sign of extreme levels of hormones, according to at least one study. Specifically, the researchers believe that Neanderthals were naturally pumped up with large amounts of hormones that added to their increased muscle mass and provided them with the ability to pull off some pretty crazy feats of strength, such as lugging up to 50 pounds or 27 kilograms of meat for 30 miles or 48 kilometers, the same distance as walking 138 laps around a soccer field. What's more is that thanks to their larger chests, shoulders, and triceps, scientists assume that Neanderthals would have been pretty great wrestlers and powerlifters if still around, with males possibly being able to bench press 500 pounds or 200 kilograms without training, while the females could have done 350 pounds or 160 kilos. For a little bit of context, just 2/3 of this weight would have been considered elite levels by our own standard. Their short, bulky builds played a big role in this strength too, but it wasn't only power that they gained from their robustness, as it bestowed upon them incredible durability as well. A nice touch to complement the brutally hard lives that many Neanderthals endured. In fact, a systemic analysis on recovered skeletons found that between 79 and 94% showed signs of extreme trauma that had fully healed. These injuries ranged from blunt force fractures all the way to traumatic amputations, with a particularly gruesome case involving an elderly Neanderthal, who during his younger years had lost his right arm, damaged his left clavicle, was smashed so badly in the face that he was blinded in one eye, and had ears so banged up that the ear canals themselves were shut off by new bony material that had grown after repeated injury, rendering
Squid Incorporated donated $5 through Super Chat. My nigga.
Okay.
him deaf in both ears. The high degree of damage seen in Neanderthal specimens is thought to have come from a mix of their aggressive face-to-face hunting technique, interpersonal conflicts, and animal attacks, the latter of which actually seems to have been a common occurrence, as nearly 74% of Neanderthals, based on one study, reflected evidence of having survived violent animal encounters, with 21% having been with big cats, 17% with wolves, and 36% with bears. The most hardcore part of all of this is that scientists do not think that these animal attacks were predation attempts, rather the opposite, that the animals had been defending themselves during Neanderthal attacks. Talk about hardcore. And to really drive this home, even their skin was designed for battle, as genes found in Neanderthals are associated with thickened skin, nails, and hair, that theoretically help them cope with getting banged up and enduring the cold. And yet another adaptation that seemed to benefit their rough lifestyle were large joints, that allowed them to perform strenuous movement that would have been extremely hard or nearly impossible for a Homo sapien to do.
Rocks.
And while not necessarily larger, Neanderthal hands were also much different from our own, with their fingertips being broader and their thumbs sticking out at a much wider angle, which likely affected the way they gripped objects. And to some, their hand shape possibly meant a reduction in precision capabilities, which they made up for though by powerfully gripping their items and weapons. So clearly, Neanderthals were absolute units on the outside, but they were pretty crazy on the inside too, with one of the more obvious signs being their barreled chests, which accommodated a wider rib cage and larger lungs, with studies finding that on average, Neanderthals had a lung capacity 20% greater than our own. Yet, this number widely varies, and some exceptional Neanderthals have us beaten even more badly in this area, as best demonstrated by Kibara 2, a male whose lungs can most likely hold 9 liters of air, which is 40% greater than the capacity of the average modern man's lungs. And to make this even more impressive, keep in mind that until recently, the largest lung capacity ever recorded in an athlete was only 8.5 liters. Neanderthals' noses further supported this notion that they gobbled up air, as they were quite long and wide, which helped them move air faster, as in 100% faster than what's seen by any man or woman today. The need for speed, through their noses and their ridiculous lung capacity, is thought to have been an adaptation to support their heavier bodies and to help them survive in the colder climates, since animals who do live in the cold, Neanderthals included, typically evolve faster metabolic rates to compensate for the rate of heat loss that they experience. This is then, of course, reflected by their energy requirements as well. As in the case of Neanderthals, it's believed that an individual needed between 4,500 and 6,700 calories every single day. So, if they were still alive, you could expect food items to have two completely separate nutrition labels, distinguishing between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. The bulky nature of their noses seems to have helped directly with the cold as well, since more room in the nasal cavity would have helped to heat and humidify the cold, dry air that was coming in. Now, because Neanderthals breathed like champs, you may be thinking that they were exceptional long-distance runners, who could tire their prey to complete exhaustion, much like what is seen in modern humans. However, on the contrary, Neanderthals were surprisingly poor endurance animals, who were instead built for bursts of speed. And there's actually more than one biological trait that points to this. One example being their toes, which were fairly long and wide, allowing them to stay in contact with the floor for a longer period, and thus allowing them to generate more power and faster starts. Not to mention that their leg bones were quite short, something that's not usually seen in endurance athletes of today, who typically have longer legs to increase each stride. Even their Achilles tendons were not designed for distance, having been long and narrow, making them not the best at storing energy needed for longer runs. And this is once again in contrary to endurance athletes, who almost always have stiff, short, and wide Achilles tendons. And yet, while their lower extremities were the most blatant signs of speed over stamina, the true proof in the pudding came from something unseen to the naked eye: their muscle fibers. As you may know, especially if you've done a 23andMe, humans have differing types of muscle fibers that each specialize in a certain level of power generation to stamina ratio. For example, someone can have a higher ratio of fast twitch or slow twitch muscle fibers, the former of which helps to generate bursts of energy, while the latter can possibly help people perform better and longer lasting activities, such as endurance running. In modern humans, these fibers are mixed, and this was also the case in Neanderthals, but they typically had a way higher concentration of these fast twitch muscle fibers than we do, a likely adaptation for their hunting style, which required quick bursts of speed to get close and personal with their prey. This also means that if for whatever reason if Neanderthals came back, be sure to challenge one to a marathon instead of a sprint, to at least give yourself the best shot of winning. All this power and speed no doubt gave them quite a lot of brawn, but interestingly enough, they were also a lot of brain as well, as they had freakishly large brain cases. On average, the male brain cases tended to be 1,640 cubic centimeters, and in the woman it was usually around 1,460 cubic centimeters, which makes them about 30% bigger than what's seen in contemporary humans. Now, pure size alone does not paint the full story of intelligence, but their huge brains were a good sign that they were at least far more intelligent than first thought. And today, it's widely believed that Neanderthals could perform a whole host of complex tasks, such as coordinating hunts, making tools, creating arts, taking exceptional care of the sick, and, of course, communicating. Yet, despite the size of their brains, researchers do not necessarily think that Neanderthals had superior mental prowess compared to us, as their brains were also structurally different than ours, having a more circular bomb-like shape that had to operate a large body, and devoted larger areas to certain senses, such as smell and eyesight, as their occipital lobes were relatively huge. And their eyesight is actually what some scientists think is to blame for the massive brains, as Neanderthals also had unusually big eyes, which would have required much more brain power to process what they were seeing. Of course though, no one has ever found an intact Neanderthal eye, but based on the size and shape of their eye sockets, it is estimated that they were about 15% larger than our own, which would have helped them see a lot better and sharper than we do, while also giving them better night vision. These eyes, in conjunction with their big brains and large noses, gave Neanderthals some pretty sizable heads and skulls that might have led to their sturdy, thick necks, seeing that they had to be able to support such giant noggins. Furthermore, their heads, relative to ours, were not just bigger, but more elongated and forward projecting as well. And unsurprisingly, their other facial features were supersized too, including the jaw and teeth. It was originally thought that their thick, wide jaws and sturdy chompers were an indication of an insane bite force that would have let them gnaw on bones, tough meat, and a variety of abrasive foods. However, subsequent studies revealed a bite force not far from our own, with it being comparable to the bites seen in the upper range of modern humans, and would have registered at around 700 newtons. So that's to say, while it would hurt a lot to be bit, it would most likely not cause any catastrophic wounds, at least most of the time. This does call into question though, why did they have such large mouths and teeth if not for a strong bite? And one interesting idea claims that the answer is that the jaw was simply widened in order to accommodate the teeth themselves, which had essentially evolved to be a third hand. To be exact, a group of researchers believe that Neanderthals would have used their teeth to grip and manipulate different items, thus freeing up both of their hands for other uses. And there is some evidence that backs this, as besides being grippy in structure and nature, Neanderthal dentition have wear and tear patterns to the front that don't really align with eating or chewing, and is only found in Neanderthals, suggesting that they bit objects with their front teeth quite a lot. The bulky nature of each tooth may have also been an important part in processing their diets, which we know based on isotopic analysis consisted of large amounts of meat. So much so, in fact, that they are considered to have been hypercarnivores. In other words, 70% of their huge caloric need came from meat alone. At this point, I wouldn't blame you for thinking Neanderthals were quite funky and different compared to us. And you may be wondering what impact this has on you if you're one of the many with Neanderthal DNA. For example, if it means super strength or a voracious appetite for meat. Well, simply put, nearly every study on the matter so far has not yielded any significant results. And most maintain that Neanderthal DNA usually only has subtle effects on athletic feats and physical appearances. Although, there is a growing list of studies that suggest that their DNA may have had greater impacts on our internal systems than we once thought. That being said, many of these studies have conflicted with each other, and there is a lot of disagreement in general on just how impactful Neanderthal DNA really is. But what no one is in disagreement with is just how amazing these extinct humans were. Thanks for watching, and until
Today, we're going over the most epic deaths in human history. Number 1, Benkei. We're starting this video off with a story of the greatest wingman in human history. It's a dark night in 12th century Japan, and a Buddhist monk named Benkei is wandering the streets of Kyoto. With an abundance of temples dotting the city, monks are a common sight, but this guy is different. At 6'6", he towers over everyone around him, and he's carrying a weapon. A cross between a sword and a long spear called a naginata. His face gives off the vibes of someone on a hunt more than someone seeking enlightenment. And it turns out he was out hunting that night for his final victim. See, Benkei was actually a Sohei, a warrior monk trained and battle-hardened in combat. Through his encounters with samurai, he's decided that they were an arrogant class, unworthy of their status in society. The world would be a better place with less of them around, and this led him on a bloody quest to duel and defeat 1,000 samurai, collecting their blades as trophies after each victory. At this point, he had collected 999 swords and was out that night looking for his final duel. While walking near Goto Tenjin Shrine, Benkei hears the sound of a flute, and when looking to see who is playing it, he finds a small, thin samurai. Around the man's waist is a beautiful gilded katana, the perfect piece to finalize Benkei's sword collection. He immediately challenges this samurai to a duel. The small man puts away his flute, and surprisingly, he agrees to fight. The two men walk together to Gojo Bridge and draw their weapons. Full of confidence, Benkei rushes in, but despite towering over the samurai, Benkei is swiftly defeated. Instead of taking his life, the samurai just turns and walks away. Benkei is shocked and left in disbelief. In the following days, these unfamiliar feelings turn to anger and frustration. How could he lose to this tiny samurai? He had defeated much larger men in the past. He decides to stalk the grounds of Kiyomizu-dera Temple, waiting for the samurai to appear so he could take his revenge. Eventually, the samurai does show up, and Benkei immediately challenges him to another duel, a fight that Benkei loses again. Humiliated, he bows in defeat and tells this samurai that he'll abandon his life as a monk and instead follow him as one of his retainers. The samurai, who turns out to be Minamoto no Yoshitsune of the legendary Minamoto clan, agrees. Benkei joins him on his adventures, and the two become inseparable. They go on to join Yoshitsune's half-brothers and fight in the Genpei War against the powerful Taira, a clan that had killed Yoshitsune's father when he was just a baby. After 5 years of fighting, the Minamoto clan emerges victorious, and one of Yoshitsune's half-brothers, Yoritomo, becomes shogun. The end of the Genpei War had an unintended consequence. Without a common enemy, jealousy and suspicion soon turn the brothers against each other, and Yoshitsune and Benkei find themselves on the run, being pursued by Yoritomo and his men. They eventually find protection under another clan called the Fujiwara, and the pair spend a few years in relative peace in their domain. This ultimately did not last, as with a lot of pressure and probably a lot of bribes, Yoritomo finally convinces the Fujiwara to turn on his brother. Fujiwara no Hidehira, the man who was once their protector, betrays them, and on June 15, 1189, at the Battle of Koromogawa, Yoshitsune and Benkei find themselves trapped and outnumbered 5-1, with 500 of Fujiwara's men surrounding their castle position. The forces clash, and Yoshitsune's men put up a heroic effort. Benkei in particular is a demon on the battlefield, crushing enemies who are on average more than a foot shorter than him. But despite their best efforts, Yoshitsune's men quickly begin to fall. With just a handful of retainers remaining, Yoshitsune realizes the battle is already lost. He turns to Benkei and tells him he plans to commit seppuku within the castle. He'll need time to prepare, and Benkei understands the assignment. He walks to the bridge that serves as the only entrance to the castle and stands alone against Fujiwara's army. Fujiwara signals a charge, and wave after wave of his men charge Benkei. He cuts them down one after another. No man can make it past him. In some stories, he's said to have single-handedly slain 300 soldiers on that bridge.
Jesus.
Benkei stands stoically behind a pile of deceased Fujiwara warriors, beckoning more men to cross. And despite orders to do so, none of the Fujiwara's men answer his call. They all know that stepping on the bridge was a death sentence. Fujiwara, realizing his men are now too afraid to attack Benkei head-on, calls in his archers. They'll take him out from a distance instead. The archers let loose a barrage of arrows that find their mark in Benkei's chest, but nothing happens. Benkei doesn't flinch. They let loose another volley of arrows, but still nothing changes. Benkei's body is now a pincushion of arrows, but is still standing defiantly in their way. Time passes, and both sides stare at each other across the bridge. Nobody dares to make the first move. Finally, Fujiwara orders some of his men onto the bridge, and they reluctantly do as they're told. As they slowly approach Benkei, he makes no motion to ready himself. They creep closer, and when they finally reach the massive monk, they discover that while he was still standing, he was already dead. Benkei, knowing he needed to buy as much time for his master as possible, had positioned himself to be supported by his spear even if he was no longer alive. In his last stand, he showed no pain or emotion while being hit with countless arrows, all to give the illusion that he was ready to fight anyone who dared to cross. Because of his final actions, Yoshitsune had enough time to commit the seppuku ritual properly, maintaining his honor. What a wingman! Number 2. Yi Sun-shin. The end of the 16th century in Korea was a strange mix of insane political corruption and relative peace for its people. Korea was a loyal tribute state to China, and the Ming dynasty pretty much left them alone. To the east, the Japanese were busy killing each other in the Sengoku Jidai, so they weren't a problem either. Aside from those pesky Jurchens who were constantly invading from the north, the rest of Korea was pretty boring and uneventful with no major threats. The boring, no-wars way of life led to many men choosing to pursue careers as scholars and government officials, as it was now the best way to gain power and influence. This led to a bloated and corrupt political class and an extremely weak military led by generals who had never seen real combat. This combination of governmental corruption and a weak military would end up causing all kinds of problems in 1590 when Hideyoshi Toyotomi fulfilled the dreams of his former lord Oda Nobunaga and reunified Japan, bringing an end to the Sengoku Jidai. The Japanese, for the first time in over 100 years, were not at war with each other. And if they weren't busy fighting each other, who are they going to fight now? Oh. Hey, before you brutally invade Korea and stuff, can I ask you, how many spam emails or texts do you get a day? Person on marker basically clicks dealing it's your invade Korea. What an awesome deal. Okay, you can get back to your invasion now. Toyotomi begins sending messengers to Korea, saying that he was planning to conquer China and that he expects the Koreans to help him or else. Now remember, Korea was basically like the Puerto Rico of China in this era, so they couldn't really help Japan conquer it. Not like they wanted to anyway. They thought the Japanese were primitive barbarians. Plus, those idiots don't even know how to sail anyway, right? Ha. Oh. In 1592, hundreds of Japanese ships are spotted off the coast of Busan. This is no trading expedition, this is an invasion. Seeing the massive Japanese fleet, two of Korea's top admirals freak out and sink their own ships so they won't have to fight the Japanese. And just like that, half of Korea's naval fleet is gone. the Japanese soldiers land in Busan unopposed and immediately begin conquering forts and cities on their march to Seoul. The Korean military is no match for Toyotomi's men, who are all veterans of a 100-year war. Korean casualties are huge. The Japanese are ruthless and leave few survivors. Within 3 weeks, they've marched to and conquered Seoul. A few weeks later, they take Pyongyang and are at China's doorstep. The fall of Korea seems inevitable. But when all hope seemed lost, a man determined to defend his homeland and drive out these barbarian invaders rose to the occasion. A man who quite possibly was the greatest admiral to ever live. His name was Yi Sun-shin. So Yi Sun-shin's story is pretty interesting because, unlike most heroes, he wasn't necessarily liked by the elites at the time. In fact, they kind of hated him, but for all the wrong reasons. Basically, early in his military career, he was so good at inspiring his men and leading them to victory that he made everyone around him look bad by comparison. Remember, corruption was a big problem during this time. So out of jealousy, a general falsely accuses Yi of deserting the army in battle, and the king believes it. He strips Yi of his rank, has him thrown in prison and tortured. This experience would probably make most men quit the military altogether, but Yi was eventually released, and he managed to climb his way back through the ranks to commanding a small fleet of ships by the start of the Japanese invasion. Now, despite the fact the Koreans were absolute trash at fighting at the start of this war, they did have one huge advantage over the Japanese. They'd been dealing with Woko pirates along the coast for years, and because of this, they had developed ships called Panoksun, and later the turtle ship that were specifically designed to combat Japanese naval tactics. See, the Japanese weren't used to fighting at sea, so they basically stuck to what they were good at, close-range combat. Their strategy consisted of shooting at people with their rifles and boarding other ships, and engaging them with swords and spears. Their ships were more like transport vessels rather than battleships. The Panoksun, on the other hand, was a floating fortress armed with cannons and was built in a way that made boardings impossible. These ships were a huge reason why Admiral Yi was able to have so much of his success, and are basically the only advantage the Koreans have. And they already sank over half of them themselves. Anyways, Admiral Yi was not a coward like the other two admirals, and instead of sinking his ships, he rushed his fleet of 34 ships headfirst towards the Japanese and began attacking them along the coast. His capabilities as a naval commander are obvious right from the start. In just a few weeks, using tactics to bait the Japanese to sail into vulnerable positions, he single-handedly sinks over 200 Japanese ships with no losses of his own. In battle after battle, he is vastly outnumbered, yet sails away victorious every single time. Yi is the sparkling piece of glitter embedded in the turd that is the Korean military, and by the end of the year, he had sunk 350 Japanese ships. Yi's efforts, along with the help of Chinese reinforcements, allowed the Koreans to drive the Japanese soldiers all the way back to Busan, and by the end of the year, the war entered somewhat of a stalemate, with the Chinese and Japanese trying to negotiate a peace deal. So things are going pretty good for Yi, but remember the two admirals who sunk their own ships at the beginning of the war? Well, one of them, named Won Gyeon, is insanely jealous of Yi's success. So jealous, he starts talking shit about Yi to the king every day. And when peace talks with China fail and Toyotomi begins a second invasion of Korea in 1597, Gyeon and other government officials frame Admiral Yi as a traitor, and the king agrees. For the second time in his career, Yi is stripped of his rank and sent back to prison where he is brutally tortured again. He's set to be executed, but the king has a change of heart, and he instead sends Yi back to fight as a common soldier, a humiliation worse than death. With Yi out of the picture, Won Gyeon is put in charge of the Korean fleet. And as you may have guessed by now, he was pretty terrible at his job. He drank heavily, made poor decisions, and disrespected his men. Many of Yi's commanders refused to fight under such a downgrade. And what made things even worse for Gyeon was that during the stalemate, the Japanese who had watched Admiral Yi wreck their over and over again had actually learned how to fight at sea. Their new ships now had cannons, and they began to use the same strategies Admiral Yi had used against them. This all comes to a head in the Battle of Chilcheoliang, Gyeon's first attempt to attack the Japanese fleet. With 200 ships and the best of Admiral Yi's men, Gyeon sails out to confront the Japanese, and he immediately falls into a trap. A trap they had learned from fighting against Yi. The entire Korean Navy is decimated, and Gyeon is last seen being chopped to bits by Japanese soldiers while trying to run away. The king, realizing he may have messed up, reinstates Yi Sun-shin as fleet admiral, and he takes command of the pathetic remains of the once undefeated Korean Navy. He's left with just 13 ships and a few hundred demoralized men. In the following battle, outnumbered 25-1, using superior strategy, Yi manages to sink 31 of the 333 Japanese ships, again without losing a single ship of his own. This victory gives Yi time to rebuild his navy, but not gonna lie, things still look pretty grim for the Koreans. But the next year, Hideyoshi Toyotomi becomes ill and dies, his last official order being to withdraw the Japanese army from Korea back to Japan. Yi sees this as the time to finally drive the Japanese out of Korea for good and mounts a final offensive against the retreating Japanese forces. At the decisive Battle of Noryang, Yi takes his position at the top of his flagship with his son and nephew and begins beating a war drum to push his allied Korean and Chinese fleet forward. Admiral Yi's ship leads the charge, and he personally takes out 10 Japanese ships. The Japanese are in full retreat, and Yi beats his drum with intensity. Victory is within his grasp. After 7 long years, Korea will finally be free of these invaders. But suddenly, he's hit in his armpit by a Japanese musket ball. He realizes the wound is fatal, and he turns to his son and nephew and says, "The war is at its height. Wear my armor and beat my war drums. Do not announce my death." His son and nephew quickly carry his body below deck, and his nephew, dressed in Yi's armor, quickly returns to the admiral's position and resumes beating the drum. Yi's men continue to fight, and the Koreans drive the Japanese out of Korea for good. Undefeated in battle, Yi dies below deck, listening to the sound of his drum, knowing that his homeland was finally free.
Hell yeah,
Number
bro.
3. Ben El Salomon. So we generally cover stories from more ancient times on this channel, but this story from World War II undeniably belongs on this list. This is
think
the
it's that
last
medic
stand of a
guy.
dentist turned field medic
Yeah,
who took out
yeah.
98 Japanese soldiers
I've heard
before
about this
falling
story.
to his own wounds. Ben El Salomon was drafted into the United States Army in 1940, just 3 years after he graduated from the USC Dental School. Salomon proved to be a model soldier and showed himself to be very skilled with both rifle and pistol. He was quickly promoted, first to lieutenant and then to captain in 1944, serving as a regimental dental officer of the 105th Infantry Regiment. In June of 1944, Salomon and the 105th were deployed into active combat in Saipan. The fighting in the Pacific was infamously bloody. Casualties on the island were extremely high, and with so many soldiers having much more pressing issues than a root canal, Salomon volunteered to replace the 2nd Battalion's field surgeon who had been wounded. By July, both the Americans and the Japanese had suffered heavy casualties, and the remaining Japanese troops on the island came to the realization that there was no path to victory. They decided on a final banzai charge, a mission with the sole goal of killing as many American soldiers as possible with no plan of returning. Early in the morning of July 7, 1944, the remaining 4,000 Japanese soldiers began their final attack. Salomon's field tent was positioned just 50 yards behind the front foxholes, and within minutes, his tent quickly filled with over 30 injured troops. He did his best to tend to the wounded, but the Japanese soon broke through the front lines. He looked out of his tent and spotted a Japanese soldier bayoneting a wounded American who was lying outside of the tent. Enraged, Salomon picked up the rifle of one of his patients and fired at the Japanese soldier, killing him. Suddenly, 2 more Japanese soldiers
Fuck him
popped
up,
into
Salomon.
Salomon's tent and he fired on them, taking them out as well. Like zombies, 4 more enemy soldiers then crawled into the tent from the sides, and Salomon took 2 out with his rifle and another with his bayonet. He hit the 4th soldier in the stomach with the butt of his gun, and a wounded soldier he had been treating finished him off. Realizing the situation was only getting worse, Salomon instructed his medics to evacuate all of the wounded men. He would stay behind to give them cover so they could retreat. Salomon grabbed a rifle and joined the front lines. When he saw 4 men manning a machine gun fall to enemy fire, he rushed to the gun and manned it himself, firing bursts into the charging Japanese soldiers. He continued to fight from that position until he was eventually overrun by enemy soldiers. Days later, when the Americans returned to the battlefield, Salomon's body was found slumped over the machine gun, with 98 dead Japanese soldiers piled in front of him. His body was ravaged with 76 bullet holes and many bayonet wounds, 24 of which he may have suffered before actually dying. The blood trail on the ground showed that Salomon had repositioned the machine gun multiple times while mortally wounded. Despite saving many lives that day, Salomon was denied the Medal of Honor due to a rule in the Geneva Convention that no medical officer can bear arms against an enemy. Despite multiple recommendations from generals throughout the years, he remained a footnote in history until 2002, when Salomon was finally posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor from President George W. Bush,
Hell yeah.
58 years later.
A little late, but you know, we take
Arms
those.
against an enemy, despite 2002, when 58 years. Here are the most epic brawls in human history. Number 1, the sandbar fight. We're starting off with one of the craziest brawls in American history that made a legend out of a man named Jim Bowie and his signature knife. It's a beautiful fall day on September 19, 1827, and Samuel Wells and Thomas Maddox have each independently made the long journey from central Louisiana all the way to the remote area of Natchez, Mississippi. Sharing similar ambitions for wealth and power, the two men have repeatedly crossed paths and over the years grown to hate each other. Every attempt at peace has devolved into a shouting match, and with no path to settle their grievances with words, they're looking to squash their beef once and for all with a pistol duel on a sandbar island in the middle of the Mississippi River. Like modern-day prize fighters, Wells and Maddox have each brought with them 5 supporters. But if the goal was peace after this duel, the two men could not have chosen worse cornermen. Between the supporters were rivalries that were more intense than even that of the duelists themselves, and no two men hated each other more than Jim Bowie and Major Norris Wright. Jim Bowie, a friend of Wells, was a large and powerful man who fancied himself as somewhat of a real estate investor. More accurately, he was probably a scam artist selling fake land deeds to newcomers to the frontier. But hey, this is America, right? Understanding what Bowie was doing, Wright denied him a bank loan and began spreading the word around Louisiana that he was a crook. When Bowie hears about this, he hunts Major Wright down to a hotel bar and demands that Wright say what he'd been saying behind his back straight to his face. Major Wright stared back calmly and without warning draws his pistol and fires, aiming directly at Bowie's chest. The bullet somehow hits a coin pouch tucked in Bowie's vest pocket, saving his life. And without thought, he launches himself at Wright.
Bam.
As the Major's friends try to pull them apart, Bowie bites Wright's hand so hard that one of his teeth is left stuck in Wright's flesh as he's pried away. That night, Bowie vows to never be caught unarmed again, and he and his brother have a blacksmith fashion a 9-inch hunting knife that he would begin to carry everywhere. Now, this altercation happened just a year before this duel, so this is all pretty fresh in Bowie's mind, and he has his eyes locked on Wright as soon as he sees him arrive on the sandbar accompanying Maddox. As Wells and Maddox watch their supporters mean-mug each other, they realize that they might have made a huge mistake, so they force their supporters to stay far away and remain separated while they have their duel at a distance. Wells and Maddox walk with their seconds, receive their pistols, and take their positions. The signal's given and they fire at each other, but both miss. Their weapons are reloaded, and again they take their place and on command fire for a second time. But again, both shots miss. At this point, the realness of the situation is starting to sink in for both Wells and Maddox, and realizing that dueling sounded a lot cooler before they actually started doing it, the men decide to shake hands and call their beef settled. Honor had been restored to both gentlemen, hooray! And the day ended without any bloodshed at all. Nice! Or that's what they thought. See, as the men and their seconds begin to walk together towards Maddox's camp to get some refreshments, Wells's supporters, General Cooney and Jim Bowie, rush out from their waiting area upset and wondering why the duel is over if they're both still alive. The duelists explain what happened, but Cooney, still craving a day of violence, turns to Robert Crane, his hated rival and Maddox's second, and says, "Colonel Crane, this is a good time to settle our difficulty." And this is when the shit hits the fan. Crane, still holding Maddox's pistol from the duel, aims at Cooney and fires. The bullet misses Cooney, but strikes Bowie in the hip, knocking him to the ground. Cooney draws his pistol and fires at Crane, hitting him in the arm. And immediately, Crane produces his own pistol from his belt and fires back at Cooney. He hits an artery in his thigh and he begins to bleed out. Bowie scrambles to his feet and menacingly unsheathes his knife, looking for revenge after watching his friend get shot. Crane, now holding 2 empty pistols, throws one at Bowie and hits him square on the forehead, shattering the gun and knocking him to the ground for a second time. Bowie crawls away and slumps against a giant
Thrill Me donated $10 through Super Chat. Happy New Year, Greg. Skitsy 2025. You have brought so much content and dedication to your streams. Thank you for the hash brown grilled cheese. What would the Gregor sandwich look like? Like it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My sandwich would be potato bread, grilled onions, double smash patty, cheddar, garlic aioli. Temperature. can buy your own if you want. So it's cold. Trying to mess up your Duolingo streak. What language is you doing right now? I gotcha. Yeah. Okay. I hear that. So hard. Yeah, well, it certainly ain't easy if it's not financial or emotional or physical problems. There's always something. I think it's probably a good thing because if people got to choose when they die, I feel like that would have messed them up in some other way. Like, you know, there's always those people talking about, like, if you had somebody that could tell you exactly when and how you die, then, you know, they'll just spend their entire life worrying about it. And plus, maybe you'll say, I want to die earlier than you should, and you miss out on a lot of life because you allowed yourself to go off at that exact moment. You know, death isn't nice, but I don't think anybody wants a planned death. You want it to come in the night so that you don't expect it. Ideally, one that isn't painful, you know, one that just takes you out in one day. Or better yet, 1 minute. But yeah.
Driftwood log to try to regain his composure. The gunshots startle the remaining supporters from both camps, who all begin rushing in, and Major Wright spots his nemesis dazed on the ground. Without hesitation, he rushes towards Bowie, quickly draws his pistol, and fires at him, trying to finish him off for good. Bowie rolls out of the way at the last moment, and Wells' second, a man named McWhorter, throws Bowie a pistol, which he quickly fires at Wright and hits him, screaming.
Screaming? Turn on my heater.
Damn you! You have killed me! Wright unsheaths his cane sword and stabs Bowie in the chest, puncturing his left lung. Wright bends over trying to remove his sword from his rival's chest, but it's caught in Bowie's sternum. Bowie quickly swipes at the Major with his free hand and manages to snag a hold of Wright's collar. With the cane sword still lodged in his chest, Bowie pulls himself to his feet and whispers into Wright's ear, "And now, Major, you die." He plunges his knife into the heart of his sworn enemy, taking his life. As Bowie and Wright stand in their bloody embrace, Wright's friends, the Blanchard brothers, fire their pistols at Bowie, and one of the bullets pierces his arm. Bowie quickly shoves Wright's body off of his knife and slashes one of the brothers, cutting his arm and taking him out of the fight. As the brothers begin to flee, the remaining Wells supporters open fire, and the unlucky Blanchard with the gash in his arm adds a bullet wound to his list of injuries. More shots are fired, but no one else scores a hit, and the original duelists finally regain order and stop the violence. The entire brawl lasted just 90 seconds, but 2 men are dead, and Jinbui is severely injured, being shot twice and stabbed in the chest. Crane, having no previous bad blood with Jinbui prior to the day's events, helps walk him to the doctors who were standing by at the duel. "Colonel Crane, I do not think, under the circumstances, you ought to have shot me," says Bowie as he's being worked on. Word of the sandbar fight got out amongst the people in the area, and the knife used by Jinbui would come to be known as the Bowie knife, one of the most iconic American-made weapons in history. Number 2, Miyamoto Musashi versus the Yoshioka School. It's the spring of 1604, and an unknown 21-year-old swordsman named Miyamoto Musashi arrives in the capital city of Kyoto. The trip is not a vacation. He's here on a mission to seek out and duel a member of the famed Yoshioka School of Swordsmanship. The Yoshioka were once the private instructors of the Ashikaga shogun and are considered the best in the land. Decades ago, Musashi's father Munisai had dueled the founder of the school, Yoshioka Kenpo, and won 2 of the 3 bouts. Musashi is determined to prove to himself and the rest of the world that he's just as skilled as his father, and defeating a member of the Yoshioka school was his first step. The head of the school, Yoshioka Sejuro, quickly accepts. Though Musashi was an unknown name, the Yoshioka never forgot about their founder's defeat at the hands of Munisai, and defeating his son would avenge this loss for their family. The duel is arranged to take place on March 8, 1604, in front of the Rendai No Temple, and just like the duel between Musashi's father and Yoshioka Kenpo, each swordsman will be armed with a wooden sword. On the day of the duel, Sejuro arrives at the agreed-upon time, but Musashi is nowhere to be seen. Hours pass, and Sejuro grows more and more impatient. Finally, Musashi arrives and the duel begins, with Sejuro flustered and upset at the disrespect Musashi has shown him. The two engage, but the duel is over in a single strike as Musashi shatters Sejuro's shoulder, leaving him unable to grasp a sword ever again.
Damn.
When he recovers, he is humiliated. He gives up his school and becomes a monk. Musashi had achieved his goal, and his short time in Kyoto was at its end. But Sejuro's defeat has left the Yoshioka school in chaos. Their master defeated by an unknown wandering samurai. This is a disgrace and cannot go unavenged. So Sejuro's brother, Denshichiro, immediately challenges Musashi to a second duel to restore their family's honor. Musashi agrees and again leaves Denshichiro waiting for hours at their agreed-upon location. When Musashi arrives, Denshichiro is enraged and attacks him immediately with a 5-foot-long wooden sword. Musashi catches the blade and rips it from Denshichiro's hands. He then beats him to death with his own weapon and walks away. At this point, Musashi has completely destroyed the reputation of the Yoshioka. The legendary family is now forced to install a 12-year-old, Sejuro's son named Mateshichiro, as the head of their school. After all the damage he's done, Musashi cannot be allowed to leave Kyoto alive. A third and final duel is offered to Musashi to be held at the Ichijoji Temple under the famous Sagarimatsu pine tree. Mateshichiro, the 12-year-old, will be the one to take down Musashi. When he receives the invitation, Musashi has his doubts. I mean, he just bodied their 2 best swordsmen, and now they want him to fight a 12-year-old? So instead of his normal strategy of arriving late to throw off his opponent, he arrives early and hides behind a tree. His suspicions are soon proven correct, as the remaining Yoshioka family and their students arrive with a company of men armed with bows and Tanegashima rifles. There was never going to be a duel. The Yoshioka were planning to kill Musashi in an ambush. But before the Yoshioka can take their positions, Musashi jumps out and shouts, "Musashi waits for you!" and slices through the 12-year-old boy, instantly ending the Yoshioka school for good. The Yoshioka watch in horror as their young master falls to the ground. Their shock is quickly replaced by anger, and they raise their weapons and close in on Musashi. First, the students attack and try to take him down, but they're no match for the wandering swordsmen and are quickly struck down. The archers begin firing, and Musashi's sleeve is shot with an arrow. He then draws his second sword and engages the mob single-handedly. Like a predator chasing wild game, the men scatter as Musashi rushes them. Anyone who confronts him is cut down. The Yoshioka swordsmen have never faced anyone who fights in this barbaric style, and they can't keep up with the speed of Musashi's 2 blades. Musashi cuts down 10 more men before the rest of the disciples flee the battle. News of the destruction of the prestigious Yoshioka school spreads throughout Japan, and the legend of Miyamoto Musashi and his 2-sword fighting style is officially born. Number 3, the Combat of 30. It's April 30th, 1341, and Duke John III of Brittany is lying on his deathbed. Surrounding him, his closest family and allies are all deeply troubled. See, John never had any children, and there's a lot of confusion on who's supposed to take his place as ruler. They ask him over and over again, "Who will rule after you are gone? Who?" John coughs and turns, and the people around grow silent. "Shh, he's gonna say something."
For God's sake, leave me alone and do not trouble my spirit with such things.
And then he dies. John dying without declaring an heir to the throne was a huge mistake and led to two of his relatives, his half-brother Jean de Montfort and the husband of his niece Charles of Blois, both claiming to be the rightful heir. And this family feud quickly spirals into what would become known as the Breton War of Succession. The English and the French both see what's happening in Brittany, and having just started their own 100 Years' War a few years earlier, they quickly begin to meddle and turn the War of Succession into a proxy war, with the French backing Charles of Blois and the English backing Jean de Montfort. After a few years of intense fighting, the Pope comes in and negotiates a temporary peace between all parties in Brittany, and it's during this Pope-induced timeout that one of the most brutal brawls in human history began. See, there are these two areas in Brittany, Josselin, commanded by a Breton knight named Jean de Beaumanoir, and Ploermel, controlled by English knight Robert Bembereau. These towns are only 8 miles apart, so the French-backed forces regularly clash with the English during the war. But now that war is in a timeout, and these knights are getting restless. Without fighting, they can't show off how chivalrous they are, and if they can't show off how chivalrous they are, how are they supposed to get famous and bag a hottie? So one day, Beaumanoir travels to Ploermel, and from outside the castle gates, shouts to Bembereau, challenging him to a duel. It would be a good chance to up our honor, at least for whoever wins, of course. Bembereau thinks and issues a counteroffer. "Rather than a duel, let us have a tournament. Take 20 to 30 of your men and I'll do the same, and we'll meet at a beautiful field where nobody disturbs us." No prize money, just the opportunity to fight to the death to prove who were the greatest knights of Christ. You son of a bitch. I'm in. This sounded epic to Beaumanoir, so he accepts the challenge. The rules for their display of chivalry are set. Each side will have 30 men, and they'll fight each other without any reinforcements until one side's warriors are all dead, disabled, or captured. Most importantly, nobody's allowed to run away. And with that, the two men go about recruiting their teams. Beaumanoir recruits a mixture of knights and squires from Brittany, who all support France, and Bembereau's team consists of English knights, German mercenaries, and a handful of Bretons who support the English rule. So on March 26, 1351, both sides each attended Mass and went to confession to absolve their souls. Now that they can beat the shit out of each other without worrying about going to hell, Beaumanoir and Bembereau march their warriors to a midpoint between their fortresses called Half Oak, bringing with them a throng of spectators and refreshments. The combatants choose their weapons: axes, spears, hammers, and swords, and all the participants mount their horses and form two lines facing each other. A signal is given and both sides charge full speed at each other. The crowd erupts as the two lines meet, and the deafening clang of weapons on armor echoes throughout the field. Some men are knocked off their horses and are quickly met with a warrior from the opposite team frantically swinging their weapon at them, trying to kill them. All the men eventually find themselves on the ground, squared up in pairs, and 30 simultaneous savage duels begin. The fighting is dirty and barbaric, with blood and mud being thrown everywhere. The women in the crowd start to get grossed out. Is this what chivalry is supposed to look like? A French warrior is slain and is quickly followed by two on the English side. After an hour or so, everyone's dirty and exhausted, and someone calls for a timeout. Both sides agree, and both teams go back to their side of the field to repair their armor and weapons, bandage their wounds, and get some refreshments. Eventually, the combatants, still bleeding, battered, and bruised, take the field again and charge at one another. A French squire squares up against Bembereau and thrusts his spear through his head. Bembereau, mortally wounded but unaware of just how bad he looks, tries to stand, and another French knight rushes in and slices him with an axe, killing him on the spot.
Damn.
With Bembereau down, a mercenary on the English team takes command and they regroup and fight back fiercely. Beaumanoir is injured in the English rally and is thrown to the ground. He begs for water, and a knight near him shouts, "Drink your blood, Beaumanoir, your thirst will pass." Exhausted again, the two sides call for another timeout and retreat to their corners of the field. The break doesn't do much to recharge the batteries of the combatants. At this point, they've been fighting to the death in full armor for hours, and they're all completely gassed. On top of this, most of the crowd is either grossed out, bored, or walking away. Remember, there's no big payday for all of this. This is all to prove who's the most chivalrous here. They lurch back onto the battlefield, now clinching and trying to stab each other with daggers and swords. Men are sloppily falling to the ground in exhaustion. It's at this point a French knight decides that the rules of this match are stupid and he wants to go home, and he gets on his horse and rides onto the battlefield. He charges straight into the biggest pile of people and steamrolls 5 English knights, which collapses their line. The French team swarms in, and soon the remaining English warriors surrender. 9 of the English team's warriors and 5 on the French team lie dead on the battlefield. Everyone else is severely injured with broken bones and deep lacerations. The remaining English team is brought back to Josselin and held for a small ransom. Surprisingly, the survivors of the combat of the 30 all did in the end get what they wanted, as the story of their brawl quickly spread throughout Europe. Many were treated as celebrities after the fight, and one even went on to marry a princess. So I guess it all worked out. Except, the French side kinda cheated.
We're gonna get 10 Halloween candies. I'm gonna put 5 in my bucket, 5 in the trash. I'm sure nobody will have any strong opinions on these. Let's get into it. Hershey's gotta be the most.
So given the fact that you can only have like one sibling out of like older sister, older brother, younger sister, younger brother, like out of those combinations, I think the best sibling to have is an older sister. Now maybe you'll understand if you have an older sister like myself, but I think when you have an older sister, it's like having another mother, but that's like nicer, chill, more lenient, and like funnier. I mean, obviously there's like pros into having like older brother, younger sister, but I think when you have an older sister, you feel taken care of, and because they have that like nurturing characteristic in them, and they go.
pretty good. So to me, a lot of the recent Dr. Pepper flavor additions have been a little too heavy on the flavor. Like the coconut, the strawberries, the cream, a little too much of that, not enough Dr. Pepper. This is still potent blackberry flavor, but I still think it's Dr. Pepper. Here for that. Let's try the juice. Sorry, my friends were wrestling. My new brothers are gonna teach me a move called Happy Tapioca. I don't know what it is, but apparently I'll be blindfolded and submerged in pudding. See you around. I had a really great time. What?
You want your dinner? I'm happy. No people there.
This message is to vegetables and vegetables only. Vegetables are going to save you. No, we are saving you. I'm getting as many people as possible to re-follow you. I think you're in hiding because you're sad because everyone hates you, everyone's unfollowing you. But I'm flipping the fuck this, man. Everyone is going to follow you on January 5th at 11:59 Eastern. Everyone. Perfect item you own. You have to pull it out. This is a good luck charm that I've had in my front left pocket every day since I was 15 years old. Except for when I lost it. And how did you find it? I turned my apartment upside down looking for it, couldn't find it. Like literally a year and a day later from when I had lost it, I was in a cafe in Williamsburg. I remember it wasn't a place I went to a lot, yeah, but it was a place that I had gone to around the time that I lost the good luck charm. Yeah. I was like, I haven't gotten out here, it's way out of my way. And I remember the table I'd been sitting at the last time I was there, there was a floor radiator, one of those spawn floor radiators, and I got down in the dust bunnies and hair underneath it. There it was. I've been there for a year. That's insane. Insane. And what is it? It was something you got when you were 15. When I was 15 years old, I was working at a live action Pokemon summer camp. I was doing a land walk the day before programming started at a day camp at a place called Woodstock Day School. From the wood line, a young woman around, I was around 15, I say she was around my age, sprinted from the wood line. Glittery makeup, white lace dress, fairy wings on her back. They were costume fairy wings. They were like bouncing on elastic strings. So not unusual to see people dressed as fairies at the camp, of course. But I did not recognize her. She ran up. I said hello. She wordlessly smiled, took my hand, pressed that coin into it, and ran off into the woods. The next day came, campers arrived. She was not one of them. Never saw her again. Perfect item you. One, two, three, four. Noise, noise, noise. Smoking weed, doing coke, drinking beers, beers. Rolling fast, smoking sluts. You smoke sluts, you smoke the blunts. Rolling blunts and sluts. Let me get a nickel back. $15, little man. Put that shit in my hand. If that money doesn't show, then you owe me, oh. What jungle love? Yeah. Oh, I think I wanna know you, What? Oh, mamma mia, por favor. I hope he's doing better there. Oh, I do too, Mario. But hey, we did everything we could, eh? Right now, it seems that rehab is going to help us all get back into shape. I just hope they do a better job for him than we would. Who could that be? I don't know. Yeah. Why? Is there a problem? Who's talking to you? And yeah, there is a problem. Did you trespass and leave this guy on my castle? Oh, man, we didn't know he was an asshole. We didn't know he was a... We thought it was like a public rehab. But it was a public one. Yeah, well, here's my castle. This guy's been doing scared she doesn't know what the hell's going on. I had to take a day off of work to bring him back. What are you talking about? You're not the Manny. Are you? Is he? Oh, I have no idea. I actually didn't know. Why don't you just go ahead and buy Castle again? I'm burning your ass. Hard. Oh, wow. Okay, control it. What's up? What's up? Yeah, what I thought. Pussy. Man, I sure hope there's no evil stabber knife guys in this dark evil alleyway. I say unstabbedly. I'm going to stab you, says the average British citizen still pissed off.
No one's crazy. He's not gonna lose those followers. He's not gonna lose it, bro. At least half of those people are gonna forget to unfollow him, bro. So right there, automatically, he's not losing 4 million. He's gonna get 5.something mil minimum. No one.
So GTA 6 is reportedly going to make over $3 billion in its first year of release. These are coming from the higher ups at Rockstar for the projected earnings. Like, how confident do you have to be for you to quite literally not just be counting your chickens? You're counting $3 billion. I know. There I was, basically. I know. There I was, basically some. Send this to someone you want to touch. There I was, basically some. Hi, Grandma.
Ishmael, please meet our friend from Ohio, Brother Hezekiah.
Hello, Ishmael. Why did you come here?
We didn't get a chance to finish talking.
You're only going to make trouble for me.
Shh. Have a seat.
Look, my grandfather took me bowling when I was a kid. It was our secret. If anyone around here found out that I went down to that bowling alley, I don't know what would happen. Ishmael, there's a tournament in Reno, Nevada in a few weeks. The best bowlers in the country are going to be there. With my help, I think you can beat them. You hear me? First prize is $1 million. We split everything right down the middle. No, sir. I think it's best that you go. By tomorrow, they'll surely find out that you're a fraud. We Amish, we demand more of ourselves. You people work 8-hour days, we work 12. We do whatever you people do plus a half. That's how we survive. Believe me, keep it up. Hi, Grandma.
Ishmael.
Sexy Back by Justin Timberlake, but it's the Home Depot song.
Get ready with me to pick up my Taco Bell order. I'm a big Doritos taco girly, so these pants reminded me of that. And this jacket reminded me of the avocado verde salsa. And the sneakers are giving me cheesy potatoes. Did you know on the Taco Bell app, you can customize any of your go-tos and save them to your feet? What was loved by poor people until rich people ruined it? 1. Living near the coast used to be a poor people thing a long time ago. 2. Every little cool mountain town in the American West. 3. Vinyl collecting. It was a dead cheat to get into the industry as a hobby. Now come and get your $50 RSP special jizz splatter Chet Bakery beef. 4. All types of what was traditionally poor people food. Pork belly, oxtails, etc. All the things that used to be cheap because they were considered to be the trash parts. Now that people realize how delicious they can be, it's driven the price up. 5. The Champion brand. I remember Goodwill and Walmart selling their Champion stuff for cheap. Now it's designer and it costs so much more now. 6. Trucks. $80,000 for a truck is nuts. 7. Chicken wings. Used to be the cheapest part of the bird. 8. Farmers markets. Used to be cheap when I was younger. Now it's a hipster's paradise and expensive as heck. 9. Thrift stores. 10. Affordable housing. 11. Hot springs. Used to be for everyone and often viewed as dirty or undesirable by the upper class. Now people are buying up land featuring hot springs and making them expensive resorts. 12. Basically everything. If it's popular with the poor, rich people will eventually find a way to take it over so they can turn a tidy profit.
So my candle that's only about a year and a half old, but we were putting the Christmas cookie Yankee candle on top today. So she flattens it out with that. It's really a potato masher, but she gets it hot on the stove, flattens out the top, and then we add the candle in it. As it hardens, it makes the candle.
Guess I have been pretty hard on a lot of people, especially my dad. Thanks, you guys.
Oh, Lisa, I was looking for you. I wanted to apologize. I don't know exactly what went wrong, but I know it's always my fault.
Actually, Dad, this time I was wrong, too. While I was gone, I got some really good advice from Paul and Linda McCarthy.
But, is there anything they don't know?
I still stand by my beliefs, but I can't defend what I did. I'm sorry, I messed up your garbage. Wants me to eat meat.
A few life hacks you'll never regret learning. 1. Separate the
Hello, everybody. I'm gonna break character just for 1 second in case people aren't smart enough to know what's happening here. The entire point of this stream is that I don't recognize the chat. I do not recognize the donations. I act like the camera is not there. That is the idea. You do not need to give me money. You do not need to be like, why is he not making content? That is the idea. If you don't like it, leave. Anyways.
This bitch got money.
Baked Bukowski 112 donated $1. Technological Monk and Canyon, your shift isn't over, put the fries in the bag. Technological Monk and Canyon, your shift isn't over, put the fries in the bag. Technological Monk and Canyon, your shift isn't over, put the fries in the bag. Greg it up, GG.
This is butterfly pea, one of the most unique ingredients I've ever came across in this channel. You guys say that this is the futures of steaks, and most importantly, you say that this will improve any steak. I'm a little bit skeptical, but we are definitely gonna give it a try. Now, if you are like me, you've never heard of this ingredient. You see, this is a very unique ingredient used in Thailand, and it comes from this plant. They put it in ice cream, tea, and several other things. But what's even more interesting is that if you Google, what does butterfly pea do to your body? The results that comes in is insane, because it helps hydrate your skin, promote weight loss, and reduce blood sugar levels. I mean, this thing is supposed to be the most incredible superfood ever. And on top of that, it makes steaks taste better? Well, we're about to find out right now. As for today's experiment, I got 3 beautiful steaks. They are choice grade and just perfect for this. Now, since I have 3 of them, this is how this experiment is gonna go down. The first thing to do is to get them seasoned. A good amount of salt followed by freshly ground black pepper and garlic powder. Once that's done, they are now ready for our special ingredient. For the very first steak, I'm just going to put it in the bag right now with nothing inside. As I'm going to be doing this, an incredible compound butter to go along with it. Into a bowl, I threw in some butter, followed by the special ingredient. Mix that up real good, and in the end, I was left with this. Supposedly one of the best things you can put on a steak. Our very next steak is going to be just a regular control. As our very last one, I need to be able to apply this butterfly pea. So for that, I added to a small container, threw in a little bit of water in there, mixed it real good, and check it out. One of the most beautiful colors that I have seen related to food. But the next part got a little weird, as I had to spread the whole thing all over the steak. And I wanted to make sure that we really feel the flavor. So I went generous with it, spreading as much as possible. At this stage, it almost looked like Halloween to me. It is as blue as it gets, but hopefully it's going to taste a lot better than it looks. As the next thing to do is to go ahead and throw it in a bag, vacuum seal it, and cook them sous vide. I'll be doing so at 135 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours. This will cook them to perfection. Because as that was happening, I went ahead and made an awesome side dish. And this one is all inspired by Mark Wiens. Now, I'm a huge fan of Mark. He has an incredible travel channel and he likes to eat. But one of the things you might not know is that he has a restaurant in Thailand and they specialize it in one thing. I'm not gonna even try to pronounce it. But I can promise you one thing. Every time I see a picture of it, it looks delicious. So I'm gonna give my best shot to give it a try. And surprisingly, it is quite simple and easy to make. The first thing we're gonna need is some Thai chili peppers. Trust me when I tell you, Mark Wiens can take some heat. So into a mortar and pestle, I threw in some garlic, followed by the Thai chili peppers, and crushed that up until it became a paste. Then into a wok, I threw in some oil, followed by some ground beef. I went ahead and started getting a nice color on it. Once it was almost fully cooked, I went ahead and added the chili and garlic mix and combined everything together. As then I added some fish sauce and a tiny bit of sugar. Mix up everything together and stir it for a little bit. As to finish it up, I added more chilies, some basil, mixed it all together, and it was now ready to be served. However, there's one other thing that you definitely need, and that would be to have a fried egg. And sometimes when you get really lucky, check it out, you get double yolk. But in order to do this right, I found out that the easiest way is to separate the yolk from the whites. So you want to get your oil nice and hot and immediately throw the egg whites in. Once the egg white starts getting a nice wonderful golden brown color, go ahead and throw the egg yolk in there. Because once ready, you want to go ahead and plate it up. First, a generous amount of rice, followed by that flavorful beef, and of course, the fried egg. And this is my take on pad kaprao. Hopefully, it's gonna taste as good as it looks, because this one definitely looks delicious, as I have no idea what's actually about to happen to our steaks. As talking about that, by this time, they were fully cooked. So I went ahead, removed them from the bag, and take a look at this one. That looks like a horror show. As the next thing to do is to go ahead and pat it dry real good, because I'm gonna be using my wonderful flamethrower to get a nice crust. And I know exactly what you're thinking. I know my steaks don't look that good right now, but watch this.
Baked Bukowski 112 donated $1. Man, I saw this dude Greg behind a gas station in their dumpster eating diapers and shit. What the fuck, Greg? I know you fasting, but that ain't right, man. What the hell? I'm so fucking pissed. Why, Greg? What the hell, Greg? Greg, come on, no more Greg.
I was hungry, what can I say?
All right, everybody, and here we got our beautiful steak with a nice side dish. What do you guys think, gentlemen?
I don't think that looks like a beautiful steak.
Yeah,
to me,
exactly. It looks a little blue.
Just a little?
A little blue.
What is going on with that color, bro? We already did squid ink, so it can't be that, right?
No, it's not squid ink at all. Now, I understand where you guys are coming from. So this is 100% a suggestion from our wonderful subscribers because they only want us to eat wonderful things, right?
That's not what they want us to eat.
No?
They want to see us eat some crazy and it looks like that's exactly what you put on a steak today.
It is. It is quite different. I've never seen this special ingredient, by the way. All right? I'm just going to tell you the name of it. It is called butterfly pea.
Huh? Butterfly pea?
Yes.
Like the pea of a butterfly. It sounds like a mystical ingredient. I've never heard of that in my life.
But I'm excited though.
Me too. Enough talking. Let's give it a try. We're gonna dig in right here. Go, please.
Cheers.
That's a good start.
We can't go wrong with the control.
Yeah.
It's so soft, but I'm chewing slowly. I need
Why?
to savor every single bite of this steak because it's delicious, and that might be the last good steak we try today.
Come on, man.
Bro, it's blue.
Look, I don't know if it's gonna be good, but I can tell you one thing. I'm very excited to find out what it tastes like. Now, obviously, you can see one is a lot more bluer than the other. Is that a word, bluer?
If not, it is now.
It is now, yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's dig in this one here first, okay? So I mixed this one with butter, and I wanna know if it's gonna taste good or bad. Does this smell weird, Leo?
It smells, there's something there, but I don't think it smells bad
If
or
anything,
weird.
It smells like butter.
Don't smell weird at all, everybody. It doesn't smell like almost nothing, huh?
It's actually a little scary.
I
don't know.
Hopefully, it's gonna taste a lot better than it looks. Let's find out right now. Cheers.
Cheers.
Different.
That is delicious.
That is good.
That's good. There's like a richness there that tastes very nice.
But there is a different flavor.
I don't know how to explain it. There's butter, but then there's that hint of like,
right?
don't know.
How do you describe that, everybody? How do you describe that? That leaves me speechless.
I feel like it's initially all you can really taste is beef and butter. There's a flavor there on the back end that tastes good, and it's hard to describe, but it makes me want more.
It makes me want more, but I'm not sure. Like, I'm confused.
I don't know. I had it all.
You ate over there.
And I'm still trying to figure it out. It's very different. I just can't get it. I can't grasp that flavor.
I've never tasted anything like this in my entire life, everybody. It is not bad at all, but it is not something that I can describe. I don't know how to put it in words. I think I know why. I think it's because there's not enough of it. I think it needs more because it's very mild. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Why are
very
you
mild.
laughing?
No, because I see this one. It looks overloaded.
Yes, this one is a little bit extra. We're gonna go on that one real shortly, but first, Thai krapao. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably butchering the whole thing, but it is a little bit spicy.
Cheers. That's good.
Oh, that's really good actually. Wow.
Ooh, damn, Mark! And I made it kind of mild. That is spicy, everybody.
That's delicious, though.
But the flavor on it is just incredible. It makes you want to keep going and eating more and more and more. And with the egg yolk on the top, everybody.
This is just a really well-balanced side dish. Like, you do get a lot of heat, but the ground beef is seasoned differently, so it has like a little bit of sweetness that I'm getting as well. That's interesting. And the peppers are coming through on this one really good. Right, Sebastian?
Hold up. It's hitting like in the back of my throat.
Yeah. Enough, because now it's time to try the last steak. You guys ready?
That steak looks like the beast from X-Men.
Yes, that's the beast. Look at it, everybody. It's blue. It's as blue as it gets. Oh, you can smell a lot more. Smell it. What do you mean, ew?
Bro, butterfly pea smells weird.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Oh,
you could tell that flavor more.
That's
weird. I don't like that at all, bro.
Oh, that's so bad. What is that?
I still don't know what that flavor is, but it's not good.
That flavor
what is that?
sucks. That flavor
that
sucks.
is so bad.
First, it tastes like steak, and then the more you bite it, it almost turns like sour.
That is horrible, everybody. You know.
Francs, Deutschmark, Lira, and Shillings all had their place in time, but don't quite compare to the might of the Great British Pound. A 23 by 2.8mm nickel brass alloy coin that most of you watching have once used to purchase some of these fine delicacies. A currency so amazing, they named one of the great wonders of the world after it. And in fact, it is the world's oldest currency, still in use today, and is the equivalent to $1.23, or 400 rupees in Karachi, Pakistan. Now, some of you might recognize that from a certain 2009 masterpiece.
You idiot!
But it is, in fact, a real place. And according to the Worldwide Cost of Living Index, it is one of the cheapest places on our planet. And that is why I, Chibble Crimes, am here to find out how far can £1 really get you in the cheapest city on Earth.
I can't believe we bought a donkey.
So in my hand is 400 rupees, which is our entire budget for day one.
Just use the bidet in the hotel toilet. You know, you spray your bum all of it. My bum all still wet. It's amazing.
So we made it to Karachi, Pakistan. And straight away we met up with our guide Oz, who was a lovely guy. His driving, on the other hand...
Oh, did I get something?
Yeah, not so lovely.
Nah, it was my fault. It was distracting you.
So we got the small talk out of the way with Oz and got to know him some more. And in a bid to tackle our jet lag, he insisted we try a traditional iced beverage.
Yeah, the goat would just be shit. That's a lifestyle right there.
The drink is made by mixing milk, sugar, and ice in a blender with cream soda. And it kind of looks like the drink from Star Wars and only costs 30 rupees, or around 7 pence.
I just got shot by the way.
Oh my god! Oh my god! The cameraman's been attacked! Birds don't take nicely to visitors like you.
So, as cameraman Harry was plotting his revenge, we were left alone whilst Oz parked the car. And it became pretty obvious we were a long way from home.
I swear that thing's eating its own shit. Nah, he caught me, man. I'm not going near that thing.
Eventually, Oz returned and we continued on.
How much is the rent here? Yeah, that's £50 a month, yeah. Wow. So how you cross the roads here, you just go. And hope no one hits you.
So I grappled with all the chaos around me, and with roughly 93 pence in my pocket and a bit of an empty stomach, I hunted down some cheap snacks.
What's he making?
So these are small snacks. They're salty.
Like crisps?
They're like crisps, yeah. Try this.
Oh, it is like crisps, yeah.
Now the crazy thing is, these street snacks cost us a total of 25 rupees, which was the equivalent to 5 pence.
I like it. It tastes like a cake, but a warm one. Incredible insight like that. Alright, so the next place is like 1.5.
Matt Posky donated $5 through Super Chat.
Hey, Matt.
Checking in on my favorite fasting streamer, and what do I see? A hungry boy watching food videos in silence. Stay strong, King Greg. You got this.
To be honest, it's kind of helping with my cravings. To be honest, but yeah, I am officially 33 hours into fasting, and I can't eat until Sunday. So we got that going for us. I went from 232 to 224 practically overnight, so that got rid of all the unnecessary weight, you know, poop, pee, liquid in your stomach, this, that, the other, you know. There's a whole lot of just stuff that hangs around in your body. Drinking myself a Sprite Cranberry, 0 sugar. That's how we're staying in it. Just getting 0 calorie drinks, water, Sprite, 0 calorie anything really. I wish there was a 0 calorie food. Thankfully I haven't had any crazy cravings today. I'm a pretty easy street at the moment. It was really bad yesterday.
5 kilometers away, so we're gonna get on this little contraption here called the tuk-tuk. Serious speed of this. This little baby has passed all the safety regulations. Top security.
Karachi is located in the south of Pakistan and is in fact the second most populated city on the planet. And as we drove further into the city, this became more and more apparent.
Yeah, this thing's got no indicators. You just go where you want. Oh, slipped him. Oh, it's beautiful. Pakistan's own Lewis Hamilton.
The tuk-tuk costs us 75 rupees, which is only like 10 pence. The same distance in a London Uber, however, costs around £8, which is over 50 times more expensive.
There's so much going on here. I don't know where I'm going. It took us about 2 kilometers. You know, in London, that's a £20 Uber journey. And then the boss man's asking you for 5 stars at the end, even though he hit a kid.
With food and transport covered, we decided to check out the clothes market in the hope of finding something unique and cheap, and boy, did we strike gold.
Oh, there's a McDonald's hat, man. That's looking prime. What do you reckon? Take me back to my roots. I used to work there. How do I look? Good?
With my sophisticated McDonald's cap purchased, we fought our way back through the thin market roads, warring with motorbikes, Wildcats and tuk-tuks as we headed towards our next stall.
I tell you what, I'm gonna get the missus a pair of socks. Now, what was she like? She's not a child.
Got money.
I just bought.
Xur donated $1. Yo, what's up, boy? Good to see you doing fine, ATM. Keep it up and you'll get Greg up.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I'm just chilling the entire day. There is no stream. You're literally just watching me. There is no ploy. There is no quirk. You're just watching what I do on a daily basis, and I'm trying to be real about it. I have a pretty boring life when I'm not making content, which is why I love making content so much. And now that I can't, and now that I'm not eating, you know, that takes out one of the entertainment aspects. But you know, I'm looking forward to playing some D&D with my friends on Sunday, and going up to Nashville to film False Hawks on the 10th to the 13th. So I got that going for me. But yeah, new videos out. I'm banned. I'm temporarily suspended from Twitch until next week, basically. I have a community guideline strike on YouTube, so try not to push it. I don't know, this is just an idea I've been doing for a minute. So, Greg Tank, sure.
Bought these socks for the missus back home. 50 rupees. You do the maths. What do you think? Nice? Exactly. He loves them.
Well, there goes part of the budget on some socks, so I really hope my girlfriend liked those. And whilst I finalised the purchase, a local man offered me a treat.
I can't really figure that out. I think it is sesame seeds.
I actually went to pay for the sesame snack, and this kind young man offered to pay for me. Now, obviously, I didn't let him, but with the offer there, we decided it wouldn't affect the remaining budget.
Well, the people are so nice here. You know, you wouldn't get this in London, I swear to God. You'll just get chefed up by a 13-year-old kid for some prime. So apparently he's calling over some tea guy right now. This guy's gonna bring the tea, I don't know.
Like us Brits, they go crazy for tea over in Pakistan, with the average person consuming 3 cups per day. Very lovely.
A little bit of tea. I mean, it's 25 degrees and this is boiling, but...
Everyone was so interested in what we were doing and so excited to recommend their favorite things for us to do. It was actually fascinating to talk to people from such a different walk of life.
The attention.
I swear to God, I buy slippers, hoping that they'll make my feet not cold, and then they get like smushed down and rendered useless in like 2 weeks, and then my feet are then again cold. Ow! Just stepped on a hot glue bead. There's that stupid. I've been looking for this cord for a long time. Hey, Dad. Dad. I found the cord. For what? Cord I looked at. In my blue poster. You know how it's right there. You know what you do? What? Don't know where all my socks are, so we're just gonna go mismatched on this. I just need something to keep my feet not cold.
Is coming from the McDonald's cap. Have you noticed that?
Lelo. So he doesn't want you to pay for the tea.
Oh, really?
That's on him, on the house.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's what people usually do here. They don't charge you. Even for food at times they don't charge you.
Just give us a tea for free, man. My heart. Thank you.
With our free tea finished, we headed to a shop which was owned by one of our guide's close friends and quickly found ourselves in a different kind of negotiation.
So I need London nationality.
Oh, he wants to sell shoes in London.
हम और तुम business करेगा.
Oh, you want to partner with him?
50-50 straight down the middle.
Yeah.
I think I see you in this. I really do.
So, sadly, with our limited budget, we could not afford any new trainers, but at least I had a new LinkedIn connection.
Not good, not amazing, just decent. The decent cycles.
So at this point in our journey, we had to get back to the car, but in the interest of saving our budget, we opted to take the bus instead of a tuk-tuk.
So we're trying to find a bus to the place we need to go to, but the buses don't actually say where they're going. You just gotta kind of wing it. Car bar there, mate. I think we're going on.
The bus here only costs us 10 rupees, which is about 2 pence. Compared to the £1.65 you'll pay in London, health and safety on the other hand.
Nah, you don't get this in the UK.
Our bus ride was certainly getting us from A to B in a cost-efficient manner, but the communal nature of the ride came with some downsides. And with our destination in sight, it was time to hop off the bus into oncoming traffic.
Oh boy.
Not oncoming
Life
traffic.
on the line.
Well, that near-death experience must have altered my brain chemistry in some way, because I did something I don't do very often. I decided to buy some fruit.
Do I just eat it? Just go for it? I never eat strawberries.
The abnormal amount of vitamins in my body fueled my journey towards a local second-hand market.
They sell the most random stuff. Copy a Guitar Hero to PS3. Interested? And you already got one of those.
Massage gun over there.
I can think of a couple of things that could be used for. Nah, hamstrings. And my ass. Come here, let me show you my market. You interested in my wares? Old men's shaver. Used, obviously. Ah, it's just a bit of merch, that. From Finding Dory. It's not quite on brand. We've got it all here. We really do.
Now it's time for us to squeeze some lunch in within our budget, and there was only one dish on my mind: biryani.
So the biryani that we have right here is like chicken, potato, and rice.
Believe it or not, the biryani and the drink only set us back by 25 pence.
That's lunch, dusted, with a Pepsi. I have this a lot back home. My dad makes it. He is full Pakistani. I am half Pakistani.
I can't lie, this biryani was actually really nice. Really spicy, but really nice. So we got to know Oz a bit more, and it had me reflecting on how different our lives really are.
Yeah, it is a hard adjustment here. It's a culture shock. People are just everywhere. Cars are everywhere. I don't even know if this is a road, but people are driving on it. Alzi got his license then, but they just driving around and they don't actually care. They just don't care. No one's even angry. If this was in England, I swear to God, someone's lamping him in the face. Off we go, baby. Back in the tuk-tuk. I feel like I've spent loads of money, but I also haven't.
So in 2023, I've decided to be more consistent with the gym. So Oz enlisted the help of a friend to scout out a local spot.
Oh, wow. Yep. Misfit 6, I can see it already. KSI versus Theo Baker, taking it back to its roots where it all began. Theo Baker, knockout! And he's knocked him out.
This is where me and Jimmy are gonna fight.
No, don't want to break the back, honestly. Yeah, I'll probably burst that.
And after all that rigorous exercising, I deserved some pampering. And so we set off in the hopes to find the world-renowned street masseuse.
Red Bull mechanics never sleep. Oh, that tap, that gives it exactly what it needs. That's an extra 10 brake horsepower, that tap.
And as we waited for the masseuse, this man drove by who claimed to be Pakistani's national team goalkeeper back in the day. Now, I'm not too sure of his credentials here, but you know, we'll go with it.
Just a little street massage for you, boy. Get them nuts out.
And whilst the lovely man went to town on me, I noticed he was donning a Manchester United hat.
Yeah, it's looking good, isn't it, mate? Rashford's on fire. Progressive football overlapping fullbacks. Oh, finna get me bricked up. The massage was amazing, but the guy didn't want to take our money, but we gave him a tip anyway, but that doesn't count towards our budget.
With my body now certifiably loose, we were invited to play a street game by the locals known as Carom. Imagine a combination of pool and air hockey.
Yeah, that's nice, nice. All right. It's quite hard, you know. Whoa. Not for him.
Dude, they're like ripping us apart. Shot! Got it!
Yes!
Of course, I was never going to be able to compete with the locals.
That should be so fun to play.
Damn, we just got smoked.
And with yet another L under my belt, I left the table. Now it was time for us to head to the beach to see what activities it had in store for us.
Snake?
Now I've always wanted to see a snake charmer, but unfortunately he didn't have the flute they usually use to make the snakes dance. But it turns out this fella didn't need one.
Look at the size of this thing. It's hissing and everything, man. Are they friends, the snakes?
They're from different areas.
Oh, they're not boys.
Matt Posky donated $2
Hey,
through
what,
Super
Matt?
Chat. I kind of doubt these guys give out free stuff.
I mean, maybe.
That's a pet, so it's not gonna go away. सर्दी से क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
Is it trying to bite him?
ये गड्ढा इनका पेट सफेद है.
So it does have poison.
Yeah.
And it does bite him at times. So he keeps that. What do you call it? The thing that
Anti-venom.
Anti-venom, exactly.
Yeah, you have to use the anti-venom.
Yeah.
Casually.
This poisonous performance cost us only 25 rupees, and in the interest of not having to use some of our friends' anti-venom, we continued towards the sea.
This is sand. This isn't sand, is it? I think we're about to go on a camel ride. I don't know how I feel about this, actually. Camels are massive. They got the humps. Fuck. Wish me luck. Whoa! Whoa! Oh, you didn't tell me it was this high. You're a good boy. My mate. His name's Jeffrey. Like Jeffrey Dahmer. Morning, love. You all right?
After dismounting my new friend Jeffrey, I caught up with some of the locals I had befriended on my ride, who insisted I tried balloon shooting.
Missed. Oh, no, you see, it was practice.
I took to it like a duck to water.
Missed.
Although yes, some disagreed with my methods.
There we go. Listen, the rules are different here, my friend.
Now at this point it was time for Oz to pray, so we left the beach to look for a local mosque, but not before capturing this majestic moment.
They're racing. Whoa. Oh, he's dusted him. Wow. Horse racing on a beach in Karachi. Fucking hell, they just came out of nowhere. Not faster than me, that's for sure. You know I can outrun that horse. I'm like the British Usain Bolt.
Whilst our guide Oz took a moment to pray, I sat and reflected about all the day had brought.
So we're coming to the end of day one right now, and we have done so much for so little. Our tour guide Oz is just in the mosque praying, and then I don't know what's gonna happen. Okay, so we just spotted these boys playing cricket. Gonna see what's going on, mate. You know, maybe we can even join it. I'm actually quite a bit of a specialist in cricket. Did you know that? This is serious. It's a fast-paced game.
Don't fancy getting involved then?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't come to this country to show them up at their own sport. This arm, call that the cannon. Coach, assistant coach, playing great, lads. Good ball throwing abilities. Oh!
I couldn't even follow that one.
You know why? Because I taught him that. I only teach from sixes, mate. That's a 10, and I taught him that. It's a 10. That's caught. That's caught. Nah, you must be watching a different game, mate.
Cricket is like the biggest sport in Pakistan, you know. They absolutely love it there. So when the lads asked me to play, I won't lie, I was feeling the pressure.
Like this? You want? Show me. Yeah, I'm not hitting this ball one time here. Oh! 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 Okay, boys, one more. Well, look, it's heritage, isn't it? You could really see the Pakistani in me there came out.
So I said goodbye to my new friends, but to be honest, something told me I wasn't going to be getting the call up again.
So, be honest, out of 10, what's my technique?
8. That's good. Give you an 8, yeah.
Wow! It was a child's ball, but that's not what matters.
With the sun setting over a beautiful Karachi, it was time to head back downtown for some dinner.
This guy's literally hanging out of the boot of the car in front of us. It's a Volkswagen Beetle and he's just sat in the boot. It's a human suitcase. But he's not even... We got the nod. So we heads for a little late night barbecue. Apparently very cheap.
At night time, this road turns into a vibrant food market, with thousands flocking to feast.
Get roasted. So insensitive to chickens. Dinner has been served. I've gone for the sea kebabs. Set me back barely nothing.
Now our £1 budget may finally be spent, but our biggest purchase was still yet to come. However, for now, the night was still young.
What's it they say? Salute?
This one's more spicy, right?
A little bit. It's a little bit spicy.
With dinner done, we sought out more entertainment under the lights of the famous Burn Street and bumped into this nightmare fuel.
Welcome to Bounce Road, Pakistan, Karachi. I am Jamal Shah.
He's a clown and he's a bird.
How are you?
I'm good.
Where are you from?
London. Oh! Come on, guys, come on.
I can't believe we're just letting whiteface.
I was roped into multiple illicit schemes by the trickster, such as turning a boy's brains into liquid and making counterfeit banknotes.
Which country currency is this?
This is London.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
And after narrowly avoiding losing my precious hat, it was time to move on. And as we walked on in search of further entertainment, tragedy struck.
Have I just took off the bottom of your shoe? Oh, no.
Out of budget and functional shoes, we headed back to the hotel, where an exciting proposition was presented. I barely slept a wink that night, thinking about the saga we were about to embark on. It was time to see a man about a donkey.
Maybe we'll run into Calvarese and his family.
That's a race cart. That's the one they use in the races.
We began by viewing the best on the market. Now this was the Rolls Royce of donkeys, the equestrian Messi. And during the viewing, we met another friend of ours who was an expert in this field.
Yeah, that's a fine looking donkey right there. He's saying my name. I'm not gonna lie, I'm hearing murmurs, whispers of donkey selling. I don't know what we're going to do with it or how we're going to get it on the plane, but we could potentially buy a donkey here.
Like any big purchase, it was crucial we try before we buy.
You got some speed on him. You're going faster than you drive.
Oh, we're in the middle of traffic now.
And although this mature beast was a thing of beauty, our expert insisted we could find a younger, more promising talent out there.
Huh?
The next vendor we visited was low on stock, with only the one donkey left, and this old mare wouldn't do. So the search continued.
It's me. Go. Give it a minute, you'll get it.
This was it. We pulled into a serious compound, of which I can only draw comparisons to the likes of Ajax and Dortmund, full of young, promising talent.
I know my donkeys, and they're good-looking donkeys. Got the checkered flag on him. That's because he always finishes first.
There's a black one outside that we're gonna see if we can buy.
They're saying this one might be the one for me. We're about to enter negotiations. Our friends here have just offered us some tea. A serious donkey like this isn't gonna go for cheap. But my name is Chippo Crime, so I'll get him down. We have amassed quite a crowd here. Initial negotiations have brought us to a price of 90,000 Pakistani rupees. They're calling this the deal of the century, Jeff. It's going down to the wire, this. Getting deals done, there's always an element of stress to it, really, but it's something that I'm prepared for. I don't crack under pressure. We'll get this deal over the line, right, fellas? That's a yes. The donkey's doing the medical test right now.
The medical process was indeed a rigorous one, and after what seemed like hours of deliberation between the owner and our expert, we finally had ourselves a deal.
Deal's over the line, 60,000.
Pakistani rupees or 180 British pounds. An absolute steal. With the deal over the line, we were officially the proud owners of this donkey, and it was time to take the new man for a spin.
But it needs a name, and I got just a name for you, fella. This donkey will be called Harry Lewis. And despite the uncanny resemblance, this donkey does in fact not have autism. At least I don't think. He's gonna kick him. Come on, boy. Another day, another donkey. Come on, Lewis, keep it moving. How do I stop him?
With my trusty steed by my side, I started to wonder how, I was gonna actually get him home. And then I remembered that Oz had told us about his friend, whose donkey had recently passed away from old age.
So Oz told us you are in need of a donkey, my friend, so for you. Please, take him.
It was time to celebrate with everyone that helped with the deal of the century. And what better way than a good old brew?
He's a big fan of Mia Khalifa, he says.
Our bodies brimming with aromatic beverage, we decided to treat our guide to a lovely meal. But of course, we couldn't go dressed as we were. Oz took us to purchase some traditional Pakistani clothing known as shalwar kameez.
You know what? I really think blue is the one for me.
Dinner was a nice opportunity to talk on more of a personal level with Oz, and of course, the man left us with some nuggets of wisdom.
Used to dream of a lot of things, but eventually learned that every material dream is just something that's temporary. I want to do something for the people.
That's nice.
Primarily for Pakistani people,
Yeah.
people living in the north, so I would love to go and volunteer as a teacher.
I've got faith in your plan. It will work. I'm manifesting it for you.
I learned so much with you guys, man.
It was full stomachs and full hearts all around as we capped off our evening. We exchanged goodbyes to our new friend, and he drove off into the sunset. You know, filming this video, it really was an eye-opening experience for me. Now, on the surface, there was a stark contrast between our day-to-day lives, whether that be in the traffic, the food, or
What the hell was that, rookie? You should have backed me up in there.
You kidding me? I'm not gonna help you break the law.
What is it with you goddamn rookies? You think this shit's customer service? We're dealing with pimps, rapists, and drug dealers. These fucks are the goddamn parasites of our society. Yeah, like bending a few rules to get those shits off the street is the worst thing we can possibly do.
Bending a few rules. If we bend one rule, then they get to walk free.
That shit don't apply to me. I'm like a Catholic priest. When I arrest someone, they confess, like it's Sunday fucking mass.
A confession under duress is not admissible.
Oh, so you're a fucking lawyer now? Any confession is admissible as long as those shits are too scared to say anything.
You know better than they are.
You arrogant little shit. You graduate from the academy, you think you know everything? You know nothing. Alright, I've been doing this shit for years. I am the law. I know right from wrong. And sometimes I gotta work in the gray area to put the bad guys behind bars. But let me make something clear. I am not like them. I will never be like them.
Do you hear yourself?
You know what? I'm telling the captain you need a new partner. This not gonna work out. I'm not going through this crap again.
Yeah, okay, fine. Tell him.
What the fuck ever. Drive the goddamn car.
Really, it was so moving. He's like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's like all the greats. It was kind of fire.
Do you have ideas for who you're gonna put in it? I think you guys talked about Daniel Larson at one point.
Yeah, I considered that, but I think he would just be. Man, I wish Daniel Larson would. He said he was interested. He said he would do it, but I just thought about it. I was like, it just seemed like the wrong thing to do. The
problem with him is he's really hard to wrangle.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He'd have to have like you guys would have to hire someone to be his dad at all times.
Yeah, that's not the.
Yeah.
And I think he's really funny, and I think he would bring viewers and people. He would be really funny for the show, but I think he's just too subject to meltdowns and breaking drywall.
Yes, he is.
So I think we just decided it wasn't worth having him on.
Do you have ideas for who you're gonna put in it? I think you guys talked about Daniel Larson at one point.
Much better to look at. Look at you, you fucking freak failure. You're gonna live and die in the same apartment with.
He does kind of sound like that, yeah.
I'm so bored.
swear, every single time my hair gets greasy, it looks like I'm balding. The show crazy cut off. Yeah, I'm bored of the stream now. But yeah, I don't have much going on these days. I'm fasting, so no food. And food is one of the ways I keep myself entertained besides just scrolling through TikTok and YouTube all the time. So I'm thinking about just ending the stream because, I don't know, I'm bored. I'm bored on and off stream. So appreciate you guys popping in. I don't know.